Insight, the stripped back podcast with Stephen Buckley and Keith Delahan. It's all about the what, the how, and the why people do what they do for a living. Get first-hand knowledge and life stories from the new generation and the seasoned professionals through unfiltered chat and guest interviews, now on Insight, the stripped back podcast.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 6 of Insight, the Stripped Back Podcast. I'm Stephen Buckley.
And I'm Keith Delahan.
This installment is the first of our May Mental Health Awareness collection of episodes. And later on this episode, we'll be joined by bricklayer, project manager, podcaster, and mental health awareness advocate Robert Muldoon to share his story and knowledge with us.
But before we begin, we want to provide a quick content warning. This episode delves into topics related to mental health. We'll be sharing personal stories and discussing sensitive subjects that may be triggering for some of our listeners.
If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or need support while listening, please know that it's okay to press pause, take a break from this episode, and return only when you feel comfortable to do so. If you're struggling with your mental health, please remember that you're not alone. There is help and support available, whether it's through therapy, support groups, or reaching out to a trusted friend or loved one. And now it's time for the Overload segment. Let's get into it, Keith.
The Overload segment, now on Insight, the stripped back podcast.
Pete, good to see you again. Episode 6. Getting through this season fairly quick.
Yeah, great being back, and really look forward to it on a Thursday night, to be honest. We've got Robert on, which is looking forward to this one all week.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that's important to touch on within this month, with May being Mental Health Awareness Month. There's a lot of people out there struggling behind the scenes that might feel that they can't speak out or they can't speak up or share their struggles with a friend or a family member. So maybe listening to an episode like this might just trigger something with them where they realize that there is other people in the same boat as them.
Yeah, and I think most people, even people that are feeling down, they might just coast through their lives day to day, and sometimes it could progressively get a bit worse as they're going along. I know that myself. Like you go to work on a Monday, and before you know it's Friday. Like you don't even know what happened during the week. You know what I mean? And you might not have put a lot of time aside for yourself and maybe your family. So like this is kind of going to be touching on all of them things as well.
Yeah, like in your opinion, like why would you think like mental health awareness is so important nowadays, especially with everything that's going on in the world now with wars and money crisis and cost of living crisis, and people can't even find somewhere to live.
Yeah, there's loads of different effects of it, isn't there? Like mental health affects all aspects of our lives, really. So from our relationships to our work and I suppose our overall well-being. So this week, like by raising awareness, we can, I suppose, reduce the stigma and encourage people to seek help, especially when they need it. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I think breaking down barriers within mental health is crucial. And like, how can we start conversations with our friends and loved ones about mental health if we're, struggling to even share with our colleagues at the best of times during the day?
I think it starts, I suppose, simply by being open with people, and I suppose if someone's being open with you, not being judgmental, we can ask how they're really doing. We can let them know that it's okay. We can let them know it's going to be okay. And just help them through. Just be an ear. Do you know what I mean? An ear for them to be able to speak up and get their thoughts across.
Yeah, and talking about speaking and conversations, have you got any personal experience where talking about mental health has made a difference?
Definitely, like I would describe myself as a closed book most of the time, so I don't really wear my heart on my sleeve, but like from time to time I would console in, you know, Jen, my wife, or more recently yourself, like, so we talk daily. So definitely, yeah, there was a time when I was struggling maybe a bit with the anxiety when I started my company. Like I've actually started to mellow out a bit, and just having, I suppose, a friend or a partner who listened, and that's not judging you, made all the difference. Um, no, it just shows you that you're not alone and that it's okay to reach out for the support.
Yeah, I mean, like that's powerful just to hear that you know linking in with yourself, keep with the podcast, and the chats that we have weekly, really highlights the importance of being there for each other.
Yeah, and we got a question in from a listener. I'll just call him John, who asks, "How can I take care of my own mental health while supporting a loved one who is struggling?"
Yeah, I seen this one come in. So obviously we announced that we were going to have Robert on the podcast, and we wanted to keep things quite private. But a few messages came through on Instagram, and I think that's it's one that a lot of people, would struggle with in the background. And I think it's just important to prioritize your own well being first, and I don't know, like maybe set some boundaries and just try to remember that you can't really pour from an empty cup. So make sure just to take some time for yourself, a bit of self care, and then once you've got that self care, then go and seek support for yourself if needed.
Yeah, totally agree with that one. Um, yeah,
I don't know. I
I
think it's
know where you're
like
coming from.
it's a hard one, like because trying to get time to prioritize yourself in a busy day is you know trying to figure out like how important you are in not just your own life, but your family members' lives, your wives' lives, and your kids' lives, and just having a sense of purpose. Like, I mean, like people need to realize that they have a sense of purpose in life, and in your opinion, Keith, like you have to think like, do you think like having a sense of purpose like is crucial for people's mental health?
Yeah, definitely. Suppose having sense of purpose gives us, I suppose, a direction and a motivation to move forward. It's what gets us out of bed in the morning and keeps us going. And even when times get tough, that sense of purpose gives you an end goal, and something to look forward to. Like for myself, um, work is hectic during the week, but I really do look forward to my weekends with my family, um, with my son Callum going to his football games. So I think everyone does need a sense of purpose. Like, well, like what are we doing it all for? Like if we can't have some purpose or something to strive towards or a goal to accomplish at the end of a week, like.
Yeah, and I think for people out there that might get to a point where they feel like that they don't have a purpose anymore, or they feel like that they've lost their way in a bit. It's just a reminder to them that it's okay not to have all the answers right away. That you know, take up something new, explore something different. A new activity or a new interest, or just try to remember what energizes you in life and what it means to do something to give yourself that bit of energy and a bit of purpose in life. And then that feeling of purpose could evolve over time, and that's a normal feeling.
Yeah, and like I think each person's experience with mental health is kind of unique and probably influenced by a lot of different factors, like you know their upbringing, the culture in the area that they live. I suppose even to personal beliefs. Um, like by exploring the different perspectives, we can better understand the diversity of the experiences and needs within our communities. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, no, that's a good one actually, because I did a stint in a manufacturing facility in Kildare, and there was a lot of people in there from different backgrounds and different cultures. And I remember when I was working there, I had a good friend of mine. He was a Polish colleague of mine, and it was a different cultural background, and they had a different mindset regarding mental health. And he shared how their community views mental health struggles as a sign of weakness, which made it challenging to try and seek help when they were feeling down. So it sort of opened my eyes up to the importance of, you know, being culturally sensitive when you're talking to people about mental health, and realizing that, you're trying to push this, um, advice to speak up, but they might have been, you know, pushed into a hole over time of growing up in a certain community aspect where they couldn't speak.
Yeah, and there's like there'd be a misconception that like in certain cultures that being hard on yourself or others is the best way to motivate or change or improve or kind of get on in life. But like in reality, self compassion is what allows us to acknowledge, you know, the struggles or and with a bit of kindness and understanding, you know, we can help each other. Like,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there, Key. And like, there's been times when I've probably been my own harshest critic, and I know you've been the same, even about the work you do, and you know thinking even though something is done to a very good quality, that you can always do better. And I think it's just taking a step back and realizing um that we're all human, and we're deserving of compassion, especially from ourselves.
yeah, like if you're not gonna give it to yourself, like no one else is gonna give it to you either. Like, you know, um, you really do have to look after yourself and do what's good for you. Um, do what's good for your, I suppose, your immediate family and people you care about, and not kind of be bound to others, and even to the likes of their ways. Like, you know what's right. So I wouldn't even, um, I wouldn't even acknowledge someone that doesn't share those views.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody on Instagram there during the week, and they were mentioning how they got a sporting injury which put them out of work for a while. And it just was an eye opener to me about how injuries can have a significant impact not only on your physical health, but it can also have an effect on your mental well being as well.
Yeah, like I know you've first hand knowledge of what that feels like. And from talking to you, like to be honest, I've never taken more than 2 days off due to sickness or an injury or anything like that. Did feel, I suppose, something similar in terms of the when we went into COVID and lockdown and stuff. For the first couple of weeks, I was slightly depressed because I was out of work, didn't know what to do with myself because, as you know, I suppose, a go getter and always looking to be working. But yeah, could took a couple of weeks to acclimatise to that and kind of get out of the rut that I was in. But I suppose with injuries, like it could lead to feelings of frustration, sadness of not being able to do what you would normally do, even anxiety, like especially if they affect your ability to do things that you love or disrupt your daily routines and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go from being active to static and watch people around you being able to do things that you've been able to do.
Yeah, and like even to the point where um the older workers going into retirement, like and taking a step back from their daily duties. Like I don't want to say too much, but I first hand knowledge of someone that um was again a go getter and worked hard all his life, and you know was obviously forced into retirement, and it didn't suit him, like and unfortunately um he took his life. he was retirement age, but like he just felt like he was useless then after, after going into retirement. He felt life had become worthless. Like, so, his mental state wasn't in a good place.
Yeah, and it brings us back to the sense of purpose, doesn't it? It's people being able to get up out of bed and feel like that they have something to offer, and when that's gone, it's so important to have something else in your life.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it does shine a light on, the fact that work, like work, this is, kind of a work based podcast, but work is not everything. You do need to have extra activities outside of the workplace that you can fall back on as well. Like, be part of different, I suppose, communities and, different groups that you can fall back on if things aren't going. Basically, don't put all your eggs in the one basket, I
Yeah,
suppose is what I'm trying to say.
yeah, 100%. And I remember when um we worked together. I spoke about it on the last episode. I'd fallen off the ladder and I broke my arm, and
Yeah,
I went through a period of feeling really down and helpless during the rehabilitation. And I used to come down to the site
yeah,
um pretty much every week just to talk to you and
yeah,
let you know how I was getting on, and trying to see a goal ahead of me of what was going to be still there for me once I'd fully recovered. And I just think not being able to do simple tasks or participate in my usual activities like really took a toll on my mental health. And I think without coming down and being able to speak to you guys and giving me the motivation that I was doing well and I look better, and you just can't wait to see me back on site again, really gave me the push.
yeah, and it just shows how backwards we are here in Ireland. Like, you would have come down to us, tea time or whatever, and we would have been like, "Ah, Steve-O's he's at home sitting on the couch, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's at home watching television, or he's on the PlayStation." But like, looking at it now with a bit of a mature head on us, it was probably a nightmare for you, like, where you probably would have paid anything to be in our position where we could work and, you know be socially there with everybody and, just living your normal life.
yeah, and I think that was my sense of purpose. It was I gave myself a time period that I was going to get back to work, so I did everything within my power to get that rehabilitation done and get back. And when we were back on site, I probably wasn't 100%, but I was good enough to get going again. And I think without having my peers around me and colleagues, just you know, even that bit of banter and
Yeah,
a bit of camaraderie, just
to uplift you.
uplift me. And like without that, I think I wouldn't know if I've ever got back into it.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, so whether it be injury or, being forced out of work for sickness and, retirement, like, it's the same feelings people are going through.
Yeah, I just think it's important you know within life, albeit your career or your personal life, just to celebrate the small victories along the way and focus on progression rather than perfection. um what would you think of that?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Steve. Small victories, like I was saying, you put in a hard shift during the week and, your small victory, whatever it is, going out for a cup of coffee with your better half, or, you know, taking a walk, walking the dog. Take don't take any of these things for granted. Um, just find these activities that bring you joy and purpose, and remember to be patient with yourself as you're healing. Do you know?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more there. And look, I just want to mention that in Ireland there is a construction industry helpline that operates 24/7 and can be accessed by calling 1800 939 122, and they also have an app that can be downloaded on both your Apple and your Android phone. So if anybody listening to this episode right now feels that they need an avenue or they need to speak to somebody, the opportunity is there, and that information will be in the show notes. So Take care, everybody. And I guess it's the perfect time to get into our special guest interview now with Robert Muldoon.
The guest interview segment, now on Insight, the Stripped Back podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, Robert. Myself and Keith appreciate you coming on to share your story and your knowledge with us and our listeners. And with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, we feel it's the perfect opportunity to raise awareness and turn that light on.
Thank you for having us on. I really appreciate you taking the time for having us on, and it's always a pleasure chatting to you. Obviously, all the support you've given us over the years has been really appreciated, and it's great to have this opportunity to come and talk to you both.
Hey, Robert, it's Keith here. Yeah, as Stephen says, great to have you on. Suppose the first thing we want to go into is, would you mind giving our listeners a look into you as a person, where you're from, and your trade background?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you want to take it right back to the very beginning, when I fell out with my mum. So I was actually born in Birmingham, and I lived in Birmingham for a couple of years. And my dad got a job with a business or a company that was based in Manchester. My dad was a mechanical engineer, so he worked with anything that was to do with pumps, whether it be pumping sewage, pumping chocolate, or pumping water. The company that he worked for was involved with them. So I grew up in and around Manchester, South Manchester, in a little place called Gatley, which was part of Stockport. And I went to school, as everybody does, and me and school never really got on. I was never really a naughty kid in school, but there was definitely stuff going on in school, in the sense that my behaviour was never the best, and I was always never the most well behaved. I was always like the class clown that everybody got on with, and we had a laugh and along the way. But in reality, me and school never really got on, and that was the same whether it be in primary school and secondary school. And when I left secondary school in the year 2000, I got a job with a small local builder, and everything sort of clicked for me. I was like, oh, you know what? I actually get this. And I worked with those two for a while. It was a father and son outfit, and they did really, really like nice high-end extensions on houses and things like that. But I knew I wanted to do more. Those two guys were joiners or carpenters, depending where you are in the country and what you say. But they were both carpenters. But I didn't really want to be a carpenter, because I've got an uncle who lives. He actually lives. I couldn't tell you whereabouts he lives, but he lives just outside Dublin. And at that time in 2000, he was paying a bricklayer. Well, this is what he told me, which I think is probably a load of poo. But he was paying him £5 a block to build this house for him, this bungalow for him. He was like, you know what? I could lay bricks, and I could lay blocks. I want £5 a brick, and I want £5 a block. I think I'm going to do that. So I got a job, or I got an apprenticeship with a big brickwork contractor out of Stockport. And everything really, really, really just clicked with me. I got on great with everybody that worked there. I love the crack. I love the environment that we worked in. Paul, who I worked for, was a great guy to work for, self-made man. And I could see that he was growing this business. Even back then, when I was like 16, 17 years old, I knew that it was a bit special where I worked. And I worked for Paul for a long, long time. But in that time, I was going off and doing my own little bits. And I think a lot of people that work on the big sites, they realise you can't just build everything on your doorstep. Sometimes you've got to travel. So I was all over the UK, up in Scotland, all over the northeast of England, down in Staffordshire and Birmingham. I never worked as far as London, because I always used to say to Paul, I don't want to go to London, and don't matter what you pay me, I'm not going to work in London, because I was a typical northerner that didn't want to go down south. And I did that for a long time, and I progressed through the ranks working for him. I ended up being a project manager, running sites for him all over the country as well. And life was pretty good for a long time. I had met a girl. I got with Lou when I was young, and we got together and we got married and we had kids, and life was pretty good for a while. But sort of around 2015, I started to notice things were really changing for me, and I was really struggling with stuff. But because we work in such a macho, manly environment, I never spoke about this stuff, and I never really opened up about it. I kept it all inside, and I was really struggling with life. I was struggling with stuff at work. I was struggling with stuff at home, but I never spoke to anybody about it. I never let anybody know what was going on. And I used to just internalize it all. And I know I go out now and I make a living from standing in front of people and crowds of people and doing public talks about my experience with mental health and my journey with mental health. But I have a real big problem with confidence. And my confidence stuff doesn't come from standing in front of people and talking. I'm absolutely fine with that. I haven't got a problem standing and talking. My confidence problems and issues come from self-belief. And I never believed in myself, whether that was a bricklaying side of things or whether it's the site management stuff or even the work that I do today. I just never, ever thought I was good enough. And that used to lead me to overthink situations, massively overthink situations. And some mornings I used to wake up and I could defeat myself before I'd even set foot out of my own bed. Before I'd even undone the quilt cover on me, I'd already defeated myself that day. And I used to have to psych myself up to get out of bed and get going and turn up to work and put that mask on and put that persona on that everything's all right. Because I think working in the construction industry, we're all made of certain stuff. There's no doubt about it. We're tough. We're resilient. We put up with a lot of shit. We work in bad weather. We've all worked on sites that are rubbish. We've all worked where conditions haven't been very good. And we've all worked with, whether it be site teams or whether it be materials or whether it be the site itself we're working on where you're just not happy with it. But we all know that we've got to get up and we've got to get out of bed and we've got to earn that money because that's what we do for our family. We go out and we provide for our family. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that sat listening to this this podcast and this conversation that we're having, that I'm the only one that was bringing money into the household at that time. And it's still that way. But I am very aware, or certainly I'm very aware now, that how much of a responsibility that is. Because if I don't turn up to work, or if I didn't turn up to work and I didn't go out and I didn't get out in all sorts of weather and I wasn't earning my money, how do I pay my bills? How do I look after my family? How do I provide for that family that needs me and relies on me to turn up every day and get out? So I used to ignore a lot of those feelings and those thoughts I was having at the time, and I used to push it down and ignore it. And then round about that time, round about 2015, me and Lou started having kids. And we've been together a long time. We've been together 13 years at this point. And kids coming along totally and utterly changes the dynamic of the relationship. And I'd grown up in a household where my mum had been a childminder. So I knew how to change their nappies. I knew how to feed them. I knew how to give them the basic needs. But when it came to my own children, I really struggled with it. And I never said anything about anything because all my friends and all my family and all my work colleagues used to say to me, "Oh, you'll never love anything more than your own kids, and you'll feel like this and you feel like that." And if I'm honest with you boys, I never felt like any of it. And I thought, well, I can't talk about this stuff because I'm the odd one out here. I should be feeling like this, but I don't feel like that. I'm feeling like what I'm feeling now. There was like no connection and there was no love and no, like they could fall over if I were out and they'd be crying and I'd feel absolutely nothing for them. Or I get asked, "Do you want to feed them?" I'd be like, "No." "Do you want to do bedtime with them?" I'm like, "Nah." "Do you want to bath them?" I'm like, "No, I don't want anything to do with them." And I just try and ignore this problem and push it down and ignore it and crack on like we always do and just keep going. And as well, in between the two older boys being born, so I've got three boys. I've got Seb, I've got Seb, Ben, and Sam. And between the two older boys being born, Lou had a couple of miscarriages, which had quite a few. And everybody was like, "Oh, Lou, I'm really sorry to hear that. Lou, do you need anything? I'm really sorry you had to go through that." And like nobody ever asked me how it affected me. Nobody ever asked me how I was feeling about it all. And I think because I was feeling such a way about the older boy at the time, because we only had one child when the first miscarriage happened. I was like, oh well, I'll just ignore it. I've not carried that child. It doesn't affect me. It's not a physical thing. I've not held that child. I'll just ignore it. I'll just push it down and I'll just keep going. And I justified it in my own head like that. And like now, looking back, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. Looking back, that actually, you know what, it really did affect me, that, and there really was stuff going on. But because I was working in an environment and justified it myself like that, I just ignored it and pushed it down. And like this had absolutely nothing to do with the company I was working for. They were a phenomenal company to work for. They really, really were. And they looked after me and they supported me all the way when I finally opened my mouth and started talking about this stuff. But I had to push myself to breaking point because we don't talk about this stuff in this industry. I mean, like at that point in my life, I had absolutely no problem in coming in and speaking to those lads that I spent every single day with. I spent more time with them than my own family. I could come in and speak to them and go, boys, you know what? I went out this weekend, or went out on Wednesday night, or went out on whatever night it is. And I drank too much. I got pissed out my head. I farted and I shit my pants on that night out. I had no problem in saying that to him. But I couldn't come into the same boys and have the conversation with them saying, boys, I'm struggling. I've got this going on. I've got that going on. I'm feeling like this. And this is happening in my life. And it's making me feel like that. And I don't know how to control these thoughts. I don't know how to control these feelings because I was embarrassed to say one thing and not the other. And we prioritize things sometimes in the wrong way. And again, it's not a bad thing. But sometimes we don't realize this and we don't understand that. And for a long time, after I came to the realization of understanding how to deal and how to cope with my mental health, I went through a long period of beating myself up about decisions I'd made when I had the mindset of not knowing and understanding this stuff. And we have to realize that none of us are perfect. None of us get it right every single time. And sometimes we only know what we know. And if we don't have the knowledge and understanding to deal with all this stuff, we can't be harsh on ourselves. But I was stuck in such a space that I used to be my own worst enemy, and I used to beat myself up so bad over stuff. I used to come home some nights, right, and I used to pull up on the drive and be sat in the van, and I'd be stressing over these decisions I'd made several years ago. Like these projects were finished and handed over, and the clients were in it, whether it be the big stuff that I worked on or whether it be the little projects that I used to do for myself on the side. I used to have these thoughts and feelings like washing around my head all the time. And I used to really, really be horrible to myself and unkind to myself. And it was like a vicious circle, really, that I'd have these thoughts that I wasn't good enough. And those negative thoughts would bring on negative actions. And those negative actions would justify those negative thoughts. And I'd be stuck in this perpetual motion of shit, if I'm honest with you. And like some people use work to escape what's going on, and some people use home to escape what's going on. And because I was struggling with stuff both at work, where I felt like I was failing as a project manager or a bricklayer or whatever role I was doing at the time, that led to negative thoughts. And because I felt like I was failing as a father, because I thought I shouldn't feel this way that I was feeling, I should bond with these children, I should feel like this and I should feel like that. And I felt like I was failing at that, and it was just a merry-go-round of rubbish that I was on, and I couldn't escape it.
Did you feel like it was an imposter syndrome?
Yeah, huge. When I did my first round of therapy, they were like, "You do know you're struggling with imposter syndrome." And I was like, "What's that?" And then they went on to explain it to me that I felt like I was never good enough, and I felt like I shouldn't be in this position, and I was a fraud, and I was not the right person to be, particularly like when I was running the bigger projects. Like, because I left school with no qualifications. I did very poor at GCSE level. And if I'm honest with you, if I had to go and do my apprenticeship now, I won't get an apprenticeship because I haven't got the basics, maths and GCSEs. Or do you have GCSEs in Ireland, actually? But
Yeah, it's called a junior cert. So you've got a junior cert, and then you go on and you do another 3 years and you get your leaving cert. So it'd be quite similar to the junior.
Yeah, and once you have your junior cert done in Ireland, you're like, if you've passed, you're automatically able to go and do an apprenticeship in one of the trades.
Yeah, and I think from what you mentioned there before about you even starting off in the trade and having a really good atmosphere and good people that you were working with, it sort of just clicked something in my head when a memory of when I started my apprenticeship. It was a very bad experience, and I've mentioned this before on the Instagram page where we were brought into rooms and we were made fight each other as apprentices, and you were treated really badly, and some people were being locked in job boxes and everything. And that type of atmosphere went on for 3 years, and you were knocked down every week that you came onto site, and you were made feel so small, and that developed the imposter syndrome in me, that by the time I finished my apprenticeship, I was coming out of it feeling like I hadn't learned anything, and that I wasn't actually worthy of the cert that I was given because of the experience that I went through. It just put this black cloud over everything. And I remember something similar to yourself, where I used to drive home. One of the first cars that I bought, it was a Fiat Punto, and we live quite close to the sea where we're from in Balbriggan. And I used to drive down there, and just before heading home and having a conversation with my mother and father, or even my girlfriend Denise, who's my wife now, but I used to sit just looking out at the sea just to gather my thoughts and try and relieve myself of that weight and stress that was on my shoulders from leaving the building site, so I could walk back into the home with this face of joy that nobody would know exactly what had gone on during the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I used to have to psych myself up, some nights to get out of my van to go through the front door, because I used to see sight as one job and my home life as another, and I couldn't distinguish between the two of them, and I had to put this act on in both. I had to put this act on at work that I was confident and I knew what I was doing and nothing was bothering me, and doesn't matter how big the problem was, I'd always sort it out and I'd always get over it. And then at the same time at home, I had to put this act on that I'm okay, I'm out, I'm happy, I'm providing, and I'm doing good at life. And both scenarios and both situations were really struggling. But like you talk about that stuff where like people will get put through this rite of passage. Oh, it's all right. It's just the apprentice. They're meant to do this. I had it done to me, and I do it to others. And when people say that to me, or when people, like, especially when I used to be on sites every day, day in, day out, I used to say, yeah, but how did that used to make you feel? And they used to say to me, well, shit. I'm like, well, why are you doing it? I'm like, well, it's what you do, innit? I'm like, well, no, it's not what you do. I totally get it. We can all have a laugh and we can all have banter and we can all take the piss and everything like that, because I think we all need that. And I think if you work in the industry, in the construction industry, no matter what sector you work in, I think we all have this dark sense of humour, and we all have this dark banter and stuff like that. But there's also a line, and I think that line can be crossed quite a lot, and people don't realise the damage and that they're doing to people, because there's, like, especially on the podcast, I've interviewed people, and they've said to me, like, people said to me, whatever it was, like in 1998, and it stuck with me. And you're like, it's so powerful, words and actions that people have, that we don't always realize what we're doing to each other. And those individuals that did that stuff to you, and I've had the same stuff done to me, like I say in my talk, that I feel like I'm really, really resilient. I can put up with a lot of shit. And I grew up on building sites with ginger hair, so you can imagine the stuff that I've had said to me over the years. And I say to him, I have got skin like a rhino, and I feel like I really have, and I feel like it has shaped me as an adult. But at the same time, there's been times where I've witnessed things and I've heard things, and I'm like, you know what, you've overstepped the line there. That's too much. And I think in my adult life, I call a lot of people out on it. And not that I want to make them feel bad, and not that I want to show them up, but I'm like, well, you need to realize this. And they might not know that. And it goes back again to, like, those people that were saying and doing that things to the people that you were working with. They might justify it in their own head to say, like, yeah, but that's what's done to him. They might not realize that, and they might not understand the damage that it does, because it may not affect them like the way it affected you or the way it affects me, because we're all individuals and we all have individual needs. And you might be absolutely able to put up with something that had really stressed me out, and vice versa. So we need to realise and understand and build new cultures within the industry to say that absolutely we can have the crack and absolutely we can have the banter, but it's knowing and understanding that if somebody's feeling uncomfortable with it, we don't marginalise for it to say shut up and get on with it. We're like, okay, cool, I realise I've gone too far there and apologise, and I won't do that again, but let's still have a laugh along the way and let's still look after each other. And it's quite individual and it's quite hard, but if we can get some common ground with everybody, then hopefully we can change people's opinion of the industry, because everybody's talking about like labour shortage within the industry. And I think in the UK, I think we're 500,000 tradespeople a year short. And the company I used to work for, I think a few years ago, I think we had 250, 300 bricklayers working for us. I think we had 3-4 apprentices in the business, because younger people don't want to come into this industry, whether it be bricklaying or whether it be the electrical side of it. Because they look in and they see it's hard, you're out in all weathers. There is that culture of shut up and get on with it, and there is that culture where the banter and bullying can go too far. And ultimately as well, they can go and work at a sports shop and earn 11, 12, 13 pound an hour. Whereas you come and do an apprenticeship. I mean, my apprenticeship when I first started, it was 62 quid a week. And I was fortunate. I still lived at home at that time, so I was okay at 16, 17, 18 years old. But even when I qualified, I remember getting really excited to earn £5 an hour. And if you think £5 an hour nowadays at 18 years old, it's nothing. And even if you put it into the like nowadays figures, you're probably still below the national minimum wage. But I think people struggle and don't realise that they're investing in themselves to learn the skill and learn the trade, whatever it is, whether it be bricklaying, whether it be electrical, whether it be site engineering, or whether it be joinery and carpentry, plastering, whatever it might be. You've got to put these hours in and you've got to put this time in to learn that skill, and it will pay for itself over and over and over again. Because I don't know about you boys, but there's never ever been a Monday where I couldn't go to work, even through like the depression, not depression, it's not 1930s, even through the recession, like 2008 up to around about 2010. There was never a Monday where I couldn't go to work. Yes, I earned less money, but I always had work. And I've had friends that have gone to university and gone off and got degrees and everything like that. And even now, they're not using the degree that they went to university for. Where I got my qualifications in 2004, and I've used them every single day in my working life up until now. And I still use them now, because although I might not be laying bricks every day, but people are ringing me up and asking for advice on how to do bricklaying stuff. And I might not know all the answers, but I can certainly give them a bit of guidance from the knowledge that I learned over the years and along the way.
Yeah, it's definitely a rewarding thing to do, getting into the trades. Like if you put the work in, you definitely do get a lot back from it. I suppose with yourself, Robert, on your end, listening to people open up on a weekly basis through your, I suppose, your workshops, your podcast, do you find that you take other people's struggles on your shoulders? And do you find it hard to untether yourself from it all at the end of the day?
When I first started doing this work, sort of 5 years ago, yeah, I did. I really did. But I learned to put boundaries in for myself, and I learned to understand and know, like, when to say no to people in a positive way. And what I mean by that, so before I started doing work for the Lighthouse Club, I was doing a project in Manchester, and part of our social value stuff was to give back to the community. And I could choose where I gave it back. And I found out about a community project that was teaching people sort of basic skills on how to grow plants and how to grow food and how to do stuff like that. And it was like an allotment project. And I thought, you know what, that sounds really good. It was close to the site where we're working, so it fell within the remit of the project. And I was like, right, I'm gonna get involved with this. And that was actually Mind. It was a Manchester Mind. It was a regional office of Mind charity. And I went there. I used to go once or twice a month, And I used to, like, when I went there, I taught people how to put shelves up. There was an individual that wanted to put a shelf up in his mum's house because she wanted to put a couple of pictures up. I was like, I tell you what, I'll teach you how to do that. And myself and you would probably know that it'd be quite easy to go in and know how to put a shelf up, but this individual really struggled with it. So I took the time to teach him and know how to do that. And at the time, I felt really good. And then as I was driving back to work in the afternoon, I'm like, why do I feel rubbish? Like, I've got this really weird feeling about myself, as if I'm in a bad mood, and I don't know why. And anyway, I just shrugged it off because I thought, well, it's obviously something that's going on in my own head and whatever. I'm just in a bad mood. So I ignored it. And I went back 2 or 3 times. And again, I helped that individual with a few bits. He came back in and he told me, and he was like, oh, you know what? I did that for my mum and she's really appreciative of it and everything like that. And after about the third or fourth time of being with this individual, I actually spoke to the people that were there that were running it. And I said to him, every time I come here and I go away, I said, I'll be honest with you, I feel poo. I feel like something is dragging me down and I've got this bad mood. Like, you're picking up, and the woman said to me, like, you're picking up the individual's energy. Like, really? Like, yeah. Like, their energy is transferring to you because you're quite an empathetic person. You're picking up their energy and you're taking it away, and obviously it's making you feel like that, and you're not knowing how to deal with it. It's like, you know what? I've never thought about it. I didn't realize that. And off the back of that, they taught me a couple of valuable lessons about setting boundaries for myself. And I had to learn that I'm not taking that individual's problems home, and that individual's problems are not mine. And that might sound quite cold to people, but you have to, if you work within the mental health field, you have to realize you have to be really strict with yourself and have to be really strict with your boundaries, because ultimately your mental health and well-being is the top of your priority. Because if you want to deliver this support and this work for individuals and the people that rely on you, whether it be your own family or the people that you work with, you've got to put you first. And I learned that quite quickly. And I think as well, I think with my personality that I've got, where I am quite empathetic as a person, and I will listen and I won't judge in any way. I feel like like I say, my personality fit into this, and I picked that up and I learned quite quickly. And it sort of progressed into the work that I do today, that I am very strict with my boundaries. I'm very strict with social media, that I've switched off notifications. Like, I know you'd message me on certain stuff, but you might feel like it takes me a while to get back to you. But that's purely because I'm not ignoring you. It's because I've switched my notifications off, because I need to learn to put boundaries in between doing stuff on social media and awareness work and mental health work, and putting time in for me. And I can't be everything for everybody all the time. And that's why I'll always respond a lot quicker to, if like we have through WhatsApp and stuff like that. And it took me a while to get to that point, and I felt guilty for a bit, thinking, well, I should be able to help all these people, and I should be able to do this, and I should be able to do all that for that individual. But a lot of the time, those individuals just need me to be a safe space to listen, and a safe space to offload with whatever they're going on with in their life. And they can dump that. And I've learned to dump their problems too. And again, it's not a bad thing that I'm ignoring what they're going through and I'm not being empathetic to what they're going through.
You're just looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking at the bigger picture, that I can sit and listen to what the individual needs to offload, and I can offload that in my own way. So I'm a big, well, I say I'm a big cyclist. I used to be a big cyclist and I used to get rid of it that way. But as you get older and kids get involved and life gets in the way and work gets in the way, that sort of dropped off. But in that time frame, I've learned to, especially when I do the work that I do now. So we could turn up to a project, I could do my talk, somebody could come over to me and chat to me afterwards and tell me some really harrowing stuff that they're going through in life. And I'll say to them, okay, it sounds like you've got a lot going on in your life and you've got a lot of challenges. I can get you some support for that. Would you like me to arrange that for you? And some people say, yeah, absolutely. Can you sort that out for me? And I will. I will pass their details on to the support team, and the support team will get in contact with them, and then their journey will continue. And other people say to me, no, this chat that we've had is enough. And I'm like, right, okay, well, you've got the card, like I spoke about before, and you've got the information. If you need more support, it's out there, use it. And I will go on to the next site, and I will try not to think about that individual, because I know I've done everything I can for them in that moment. I've supported them, I've listened to them, and I've offered them support on other avenues of support as well. And if they go on to choose to take that support, amazing. If they go on to choose not to take that support, I'm like, okay, cool. That's their choice. They've made that. I've not forced them on in any way. And obviously, I would absolutely love them to take that support, but not everybody's ready for it. Not everybody's at that point where they're ready for support. Some people, it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 chats to people, 5 interventions, or however many the number is, before they're at that point in their life where they're like, you know what, I am actually going to listen to this. I am going to take that support. And it's not to be cold with those individuals, and it's not to be off with them in any way, but I'm ultimately protecting myself so I can be there for them and everybody else that needs me.
Yeah, like you're creating a temporary refuge for them and yourself, where you can listen in a safe space, and then, like what you mentioned, you can offload that and walk away from it, and hope that the person that you've spoke to has got one inkling of information from you that, like you said, he can pull a card out of his wallet in the pub when he's feeling a bit down, and might just see the number on it, and then make the decision to speak to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you, there's been people over the years that I've helped and supported that have gone on to take their own life, and the devastation that is left and the way it's made me feel it's difficult. Yeah. It's really difficult, but I have to reassure myself, and the support, like with the work, especially the work that I do now and out with the lighthouse, we get supervision and we get looked after, and we get safe spaces to offload with anything that's troubling us at the time and anything we need to speak to. And they are phenomenal to work for, the lighthouse. They really, really are. They look after us, they support us. And when I came over from working on construction sites to doing this, it was such an alien world that where my needs were put first. And again, I came from a really good background. The company I worked for really did love me and care for me and look after me. But again, it was a culture change for me, and it was a shock. And I'll be honest with you, it took me about 18 months to settle in my job, to realize that I don't have to get up and I don't have to turn myself inside out to achieve things, and I don't have to just get on with it. They really do care for me, and they really do want to help me and support me, and they continue to do that, and they make me accountable for myself, because I will work till I drop, and I am my own worst enemy, that I will keep going and keep going and keep going. And there's people within that charity that hold me accountable to myself, and they'll turn around to me and they'll say to me in my own language, to put it kindly, like, no, Rob, you're not going out, you need a rest. And sometimes we need that. We need people to do that for us, and the charity absolutely does that. But I've helped and supported that individual as much as I can, and they've ultimately taken that choice on their own. And it's hard. It's hard to sit with, and it's hard to understand. It's hard to be in that same space that they were, but I know I've done everything I can within my power to help and support that individual. But ultimately, they've made a permanent decision to a temporary choice, and I think a lot of people think that it's cowardice and it's the easy way out. It is not cowardice, and it is not the easy way out, because they would have had to deal with that and sit with that for so long before they took that decision, and it's heartbreaking. And
yeah, and like, I know personally, I had a family member that in around the same age as me, that actually did take his life, and it was a terrible time. Like, he was a cousin of mine, and we weren't particularly close, like, the usual get together once a year. But yeah, he struggled with his demons, and eventually, after a year of struggling, took his life. And like, he had the greatest parents and greatest family around him, and nieces and nephews, and ultimately he couldn't conquer the demons and took his own life. And yeah, it it's just a horrible feeling.
You're always going to do your best to be there for somebody, and like what Rob has mentioned, it's a decision that's happened inside their own head that nobody else can have a factor in, you know.
Yeah, and like most family members will, I suppose, I don't want to talk too much about it, but will feel a degree of guilt, you know, like maybe not seeing each other as much as we should have. But like life life does go on, and life does get in the way of you know, seeing these people. But like the simple facts that you know that they're there, they're only a phone call away is it's nice to know. But now knowing that he's not a phone call away and he's gone, like it's just, you know, came down like a ton of bricks for, I know, my whole family. But yeah, and he was, to be honest, he was the most charismatic, good looking, you know, really in high regard with the company that he worked for. You know, from the outside looking in, this guy had everything going for him. But ultimately, things went that way, and it's a tragedy, and it's horrible. Like,
Well, reading an article saying that 4 out of 5 suicides are men under the age of 35, and that the construction industry is a high risk bracket, there has to be some challenges that are being created within the construction industry that creates or produces this harrowing statistic, and I can't fathom what they are, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a statistic out there that says that you are 3 times more likely to die by suicide in the construction industry in UK and Ireland than you are by an accident out on site. And I think when you think about it and put it down like that, it's scary, isn't it? Because every day we go out on site and we have 5 points of PPE. So you have your boots on, you have your high vis on, you have your glasses on, you have your gloves on, your hard hat on, and everything along the way, and all the risk assessments and method statements that are out there, and all the safe practices of works, and especially working in the electrical sector that you do, Stephen, you realise that you've got to work in certain ways, and you've got to leave things in a certain way because you could ultimately cause injury to other people. And I think we get the physical side of things down. We're getting pretty good at it. We're not perfect, but again, nobody's perfect at it. But we are a lot better than what we used to be 20, 30 years ago. When it comes to the mental health side of it, I think we are a long, long way away from it because we work in an environment where it's a macho, manly environment. I'm all right. I can keep going. Nothing bothers me. That shit doesn't affect my life. When in reality, we all have thoughts and feelings that sometimes we don't know what to do with, and we don't know what to handle. And like I said before, it's a very individual journey that some people might be able to put up with stuff, whereas I couldn't, and I could be able to put up with stuff and they couldn't. And it's difficult. There's like not one rule for one and one rule for the other. Where like when it comes to the physical side of things, if you go in a cherry picker or a scissor lift, well, let's use cherry pickers for example. If you're going in and replacing smoke alarms and stuff like that in a warehouse where it's high ceilings and you can't access it safely with a ladder, you'll jump in a cherry picker. So, right, we know we're going to go in a cherry picker and we know they're a bouncy piece of equipment. So you got to put a harness in, you got a clip on. So, and that doesn't matter whether it's me, you, or somebody else that's just come in the industry or somebody who's got 50 years in the industry. We know that for all of us to use that piece of equipment, we're all going to have round about the same course of action. We're going to go in there, we're going to drive the machine, it's going to bounce us about a little bit and it could fling us out of that machine. So let's do everything we can. And I know harnesses are a last resource, but we all know what we're going to get and we all know how it's going to go down. But when it comes to mental health and well-being, it's massively individual, and we can't write policies and we can't write this is how we're going to do things and that's how we're going to do things. We can do best practices and we can do the best we can, but ultimately we need to do what's best for us. And I think the big problem is that if you go into work and you fall off that said cherry picker and you break your leg, you can physically see that injury, so you'll accept it and you'll take that time off and you put your leg in a cast and I don't know 8-12 weeks. and you go and do a bit of physiotherapy, and within maybe 14, 16 weeks, you're back in work, but everything's back to normal. But you could be struggling with something that's going on at home. You could be struggling with something that's going on in work. You could be struggling with something that's going on in your social life. You could be struggling with something that's happened 25 years ago, and all of a sudden it's reared its head again, and it's troubling you. And only you know how that's making you feel, and only you know how that's affecting you on a day-to-day basis. And it's very, very difficult to talk about this. And like going back to the point where I said, where no problem in coming in and telling people that I shit my pants, because that's an acceptable thing to do. We've all been out, we've all had too much, and we've all gone through that side of things. Whether you're thrown up or whether you shit your pants, one or the other, we can relate to it, can't we? But
Or both.
Oh, both, yeah. If you've done it both ends at the same time, you're winning. You get a gold badge, or a brown badge, I should say. But those same problems that you go through that I didn't want to talk about, it can be really, really hard to admit that, because nobody else is talking about it. Nobody else is saying this stuff. Nobody else is showing these signs. Nobody else is saying that they've got this going on and that going on in life, because we keep it stum. We never let anybody know. I used to go through the turnstiles on site, and people used to say to me, "All right, Rob, how are you doing?" And what do you think I used to say to them?
I'm grand.
I'm grand. I'm sound. I'm living the dream. It's always good, when I come and do talks in Ireland, I say to people, I said one of three things. Yeah, I'm good, I'm sound, or I'm okay. But when I come to Ireland, I always say, yeah, I'm grand. But that's because what everybody says over there. And it's a regional thing, but we're always all right, and we're always okay, and we're always sound, and we're always living the dream, and we're always grand. But in reality, it's not always like that, is it?
Yeah, you make a great point. And I suppose, Rob, is there any specific warning signs that when working in a group setting, we could look out for within our colleagues, or is it just something as simple as making sure we all check in with each other now and again?
I think it's a multi-layered answer to this one, because again, everybody's individual. But for me, I wasn't getting my hair cut. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping properly. I wasn't looking after myself. I was avoiding going home. I'll be first on site and last off site. Or it could be the individuals never turning up when they were always really reliable. They're like, on Brick Lane terms, the numbers are dropping down, or they're not as productive as they used to be. They're ratty. They could go the other way, and they are the center of attention because they're trying to deflect, so nobody asks them those questions. It's a very individual thing, but there is warning signs there. They could be accident prone. They could be coming in smelling a drink a bit. They could be coming in smelling because they're not looking after their own personal hygiene. And we can all laugh and have the crack saying, "Oh, Rob came in and he's stinking the booze a bit," or "Rob's coming in, he's stinking because he's not looking after himself." And I know I can sit here and think about individuals in the past that I've worked with that have been to that point. And that point in my life, I didn't know and understand the things that I know now. But now looking back, in hindsight, again, is a wonderful thing that maybe that individual needed somebody to put their arm around him and go, "You know what, Rob? I've noticed this about you, not yourself. Are you all right?" And then we'll always go, "Yeah, I'm grand." But maybe ask them again, and maybe ask them the third time and see what the answer that you get out of them. It might be something that might be totally different to what they're portraying.
Hit the nail on the head there, Rob, because it's just people use throwaway comments and they just think that, well, I've asked him now and he's answered and we can move on. It's just trying to read between the lines a bit, isn't it? And I think coming out of COVID, we had that as well, where people, didn't get to see each other for a while. And, when you came back out, people were just happy to be back out again. And, people were putting on a bit of a brave face and weren't really sharing what their experience of COVID was like. And I was just wondering, have you experienced an increase in people reaching out to yourself after COVID and after the lockdown? And do you think it will continue to see maybe prolonged effects of it on people over the coming years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID brought a lot of bad things to the surface, but it also brought a lot of good things. And one of the good things that it brought out of it was that people are more open to talk about the mental health and well-being, because they realised that they weren't the only one feeling that way, and it was like, I guess, somebody lifting the gate for everybody to start talking about it, and it's definitely changed people's opinions of it and the way it's viewed, whether that be the government. And I know everybody's government is different, and we can all sit here and say that they're all pain in the asses, but I think everybody's realised that we all have physical health, and that physical health was affected by COVID, but we all got mental health in the same breath, and they go hand in hand. And COVID brought that all to the surface, and I get a lot more people reaching out and asking for help and support because they feel like it is more acceptable to talk about this stuff. I think we've still got a long way to go to get through this, and there are many more people that are way more intelligent than me and way more qualified than myself that have tried to help and understand and reduce the suicide rate. But I guess all we're trying to do, whether it be the work that I do or whether it be professionals do it on the medical side of things, we're all just trying to do the best we can to help and support people that ultimately need that help and support, and they're in a crisis point and they don't know how to deal with it. But I guess coming out the other side of COVID, people are definitely more open to reaching out and asking for that help and support.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I remember spending the evenings with the wife and the kids, and you were able to have a bit of extra time with the Zoom calls with friends that you wouldn't have been doing on a normal lockdown night. But it was quite bittersweet for me because my wife and I suffered the miscarriage of our daughter Adeline during COVID, and at the time fathers weren't allowed into the hospital with the mothers due to the restrictions. So my wife went through it all on her own and suffered immensely because of it, which definitely affected our recovery process together. And I remember bottling up my emotions in order to portray a strong version of myself so I could be the rock for my wife and kids. But I used to travel long hours at the time for Mighty from Dublin to Galway, which was about 2.5 hours. And I'd have to do it back again as well. And I used that time just to let out my emotions. And, I'd be on the long drives, and if it was just screaming out in the car, or sometimes I could cry for 10 to 30 minutes at a time until I had no more tears. And I just remember at that time finding solace in sharing my struggles online with even Instagram connections that I had that reached out to me after I put up a post about the miscarriage. And I just felt it was a safe space for me to release and offload to people who were willing to listen. So then I could come home at the end of the day and just give this image of someone that had it all together for my wife. But after reflection, I know now that it probably wasn't the best strategy, but I definitely believe, like, with my social media connections and, even seeing videos that you've put up and, other people are reaching out, that it's definitely, created a forum that allows people that are struggling, even that can link together all over the world, that they can reach out to each other with no expectations and judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. I had it a little bit different through COVID, where Sam was born, my youngest, but in the same breath, I had to stand in that car park just like you did and wait till they got to 10 centimeters and stuff like that, and it was still as harrowing and things like that. And I definitely get the point of where you're saying, like, driving home and you sat in the van, because I mean, I do a lot of driving now, doing these tours for the Lighthouse, but it's nowhere near as much as driving as I used to do. I could have been on a project for 75, 120 weeks, whatever it may be, and I could be driving from Manchester to wherever. Like, I did a project where I was driving from Manchester to York or Manchester to North Wales, and I was doing that many miles that the van was getting serviced every 6 weeks. And you do a day's work just driving to and from work. You might do 2.5, 3 hours each way, so 5 hours, and then you do 8, 10 hours on site. You're out the house 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And you get a lot of downtime to sit in your own thoughts. And sometimes you can get stuck in those thoughts, and those thoughts can whir around your head, and that can lead you to some dark places. And I was definitely one of those that got led to some dark places, and it took me a lot of effort and a lot of time to get myself out of those. And as an industry, we do a lot of travelling, and we are up and down the country, whether you be in Ireland or whether you be in the UK, in any city all over the UK. You are going to do a lot of travelling. You do get a lot of downtime, and you know what, right? Even when you're doing work, you could be sat laying bricks to the line, and there might be 5 other people around you, but you could be stuck in your own thoughts, and outwardly you're projecting yourself as if everything's going all right and you're laying your bricks and everything like that, but inwardly you could be struggling. You really, really could. And it goes back to what we spoke about before, the stigma around talking about this stuff and letting this stuff outward. It's really, really hard to let go sometimes, because especially for me, I didn't know how to handle this stuff, and I didn't know how to let it out, and I didn't know what to do with the information that was inside me. And I thought, I can't go and speak to any of the lads, because they're going to take the piss and they're going to laugh at me and they're going to think of me of a certain way. And sometimes you just ignore it. Well, I say sometimes, most of the time I was ignoring it and pushing it down. And I use the example of, imagine a skip on site, right? Or a bucket or a tipper skip or anything like that, and you're filling it with rubbish. No matter what that rubbish looks like, you're just filling it up and you're filling it up. And it gets to the top, and you say to the machine driver, the digger driver, come over here, our kid, can you just push this down for us, and so I can get a bit more stuff in it. So he comes over, he tracks over, puts the bucket in, and he pushes it down, and then you fill it up with a bit more shit. And you get him to come over again. Yeah, our kid, come and sort this out for us, and he'll push it down again and again and again. And that skip is either going to overflow or it's going to burst. And for me, I burst with stuff that was going on with me. And there was a few times where I've been driving about and I had that information inside me, and I really did burst with it, but I kept it to myself, because I used to use that time driving to and from work to try and get rid of this feeling and these thoughts inside me, not knowing how to handle it, not knowing what to do with it. And then when I got myself better and I got myself in a good place, I started to share that information, and it just astounded me how many people were like reaching out and saying, you know what you're doing and what you're saying is exactly how I feel. And I've gone through this and I've gone through that, and I felt like this and I felt like that. And it absolutely blew my mind that I wasn't the only one going through this. And I can guarantee every single person that's listened to this podcast have all had those thoughts and feelings, and they don't know how to handle them sometimes. And then sometimes they've worked through it themselves. But I think a really, really important message is for people to remember is that they are not alone in these thoughts, and they are not alone in these feelings, no matter what it looks like and no matter what it feels like. Your journey with mental health and well-being is very, very individual, and it's very, very relevant to your own things, because your own situations, because you could look at somebody and think, well, my situation is not as bad as theirs because they've got X, Y, and Z going on. It doesn't matter. If it's in your world and it's making you feel a little bit different, it's massively important, and you need to ask for that help and support. And it doesn't matter if you think it's only, you feel stupid and you feel silly asking for it, ask for it, because I can guarantee you'll get the help and support out there. There's people out there that are willing to listen to you, and they're willing to help you with it, and they're willing to help you work through it no matter what it looks like. And hopefully somebody will go away and listen to this episode and reach out and get that help and support.
Yeah, and Rob, you're saying about the getting the help and support. Do you think there's differences between, the older and the younger generations in regards to mental health, or struggling with mental health being an illness like any other illness? And like, have you noticed any shifts in attitude over the last, few years?
Yeah, massively. I think definitely in older generations is that generation of the stiff upper lip, and this sort of stuff don't really exist. And I had a prime example of it today on a site that I was on. So when we start all the talks, I hand the cards out, or whoever I'm working with on that particular project will hand the cards out at the beginning of the talk. And we had 2 or 3 individuals that were like, I don't need that, it's a load of shit. Well, those individuals stood and they listened to that talk all the way along, and one of them came and asked me for a card afterwards. And I was like, we've absolutely changed their opinion of it, that it doesn't look like what you think it looks like, and it doesn't have to be like you think it is. And again, on the flip side of it, when I go and do talks in colleges or speak to apprentices and things like that, because there has been such a shift within the school way of doing things, that they are already not sort of prepped, but they know about this stuff, and they will be a lot more open and talk about it. And whether that be through stuff that's gone on in primary and secondary school, or whether it be stuff that's gone on in TV programs, or influencers talking about it, or people on social media talking about it, people's opinion from a younger generation are definitely changing. It is a lot easier to talk to that generation about stuff. But in the same breath, the older generation are realizing that, you know what, we don't have to do this on our own, and we don't have to be the strong silent type, and we don't have to be the ones that nothing bothers us. We can talk about this stuff, and we can still be the head of the family, and we can still be the one that everybody looks up to for help and support, because ultimately at the end of the day, we're human beings. None of us are robots. None of us are made of steel. None of us are like numb to emotions. We all have thoughts, and we all have feelings. We all have physical health, and we all have mental health. And we all need to come to that point in our lives and realize that they all go hand in hand. And sometimes physical health might let you down, where your mental health will get you through that. And ultimately, your mental health might let you down, and your physical health can get you through that. And culture within the UK and Ireland is definitely changing, but it's still got a long way to go about it.
Yeah, and look, Rob, in Ireland, there's a construction industry helpline that operates a 24/7 call site that can be accessed at 1800 939 122. And they also have an app that you can download on Apple and Android. And I was just wondering, is there similar support available in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's provided and run by the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity that I'm an ambassador for. And the numbers for the UK are 0345 605 1956, or you can text hard hat to 85258, or you can rightly, like you say, download the app or go on the website, and you can find all the facilities on there. And that is run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that support is there to help and support you if you work within the construction industry, or your families, whether it be your child or whether it be your partner. You might be absolutely fine, but they could be going through something. They are there to help you and support you with whatever it is you're going through, whether it be your physical, whether it be your financial, or whether it be your mental well-being. The Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity can help you and support you with all of that for free. Confidential, never gets fed back into work, never gets fed back into partners. Nobody will ever know you use their services. Only you, your caseworker, and their support staff will know that you've used their services.
That's great, Rob. We'll put that out on our show notes. And for yourself, Rob, what plans have you got in store for the near future? And I suppose for anyone looking to learn more about you, your podcast, your mental health talks, where can they find you?
If you search the MYH podcast on any of the social media platforms, I'm sure I'll pop up there. And I mean, the podcast has grown arms and legs. I started it 4 years ago this year, and I never thought it would grow to the place that it is today. I got tagged in a post today that somebody was out in Norwich and they were wearing one of my t-shirts, and two people came over to that individual saying, "Oh, is that the MYH pod? Is that Robert?" And that stuff absolutely blows my mind, that I was in such a low place all those years ago, and I decided to make a change for the positive. And I actually got rained off one day. All the lads had gone home, and I was sat in my office on site, just catching up with a bit of paperwork. And I had like this epiphany moment that I thought, my biggest problem when I was going through it was I wasn't talking about what I was going through. Why don't we start a podcast about mental health in construction? Because a podcast is all about talking, and hopefully people can listen to that, and it'll give them the courage to reach up and ask for help and realize that they can change their life, and it gives them that hope more than anything. My biggest thing is to give people hope that it does get better, and to get messages like I got today, it absolutely blows me away. And moving forward, I think the biggest thing is that I'll continue to do that work that I'm doing, continue to spread the message, continue to get up every day and get out and speak to individuals, and keep spreading the word more than anything, and help as much as I can. And don't get me wrong, boys, there is times where I am absolutely mental health out, but that I've realised over the years, again, going back to those boundaries, to take that time out and give back to myself so I can be there for others. Because I'm sure, Stephen, you as an individual, you realise that you don't want to wake up every day and go and do electrical work, do you? And I'm exactly the same with the mental health stuff. Sometimes I need to put those boundaries in and those barriers in to give me a bit of a break, and that allows me to sort of rest, recover, reset, and it fills my head with ideas to go out and continue spreading the word about it's okay to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that myself and Keith got into the podcast game just to try and get a message spread to anybody who's listening. That, and if somebody comes away from listening to our episodes and can get a little bit of knowledge or something that they can take away from it and make their life a bit more positive, I think that's something similar what you're doing with your career as well, Rob, and myself and Keith can only congratulate you for that.
Yeah, brilliant.
I really, really appreciate it, boys. I really do. And thank you for your continued support. It really does mean everything to me. And like people that have sent us messages over the years, and people that have reached out to us, and people that have flashed us going through traffic and come over and shook my hand, it absolutely blows me away. And I really appreciate everything, and I really appreciate everybody as well, because ultimately I'm stood there doing the talks and things like that, but I really, really, really couldn't do this work without the help and support of everybody, including yourself, Keith, and including yourself, Steve, because I need that support of everybody. I need people to just let me know that I'm doing all right, because that imposter syndrome is a bitch, and sometimes it can come back and creep in at me. And when I get those messages, it makes all the hard work and it makes all the sacrifice worth it.
Myself and Keith, we're only a phone call now or a DM away from any bit of conversation if you need it, Rob. So just remember that. And look, before we let each guest go, we always ask them one final question, and that's that we're putting together a season 2 Spotify playlist, and each guest gets to add one song to it. What would your song of choice be, Rob?
So my song, I was thinking about this, right? My song of choice at the minute, where I get in the van when I finish the talk, or when I get in the van and I want to G myself up, or when the adrenaline levels are high, it's a band. So they're called Fontaine DC, and they're actually from Dublin. And their latest song, is it called Star Punch? I think it's called. That is on as loud as it'll go in the van for as long as I can get away with playing it.
Yeah, that's great. The lead singer actually is from just a town close by to where we're from in Balbriggan. He's from Skerries, so it's a local hero now to be sticking on to the playlist. So I'm delighted with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what? Right? I like people that have regional accents. You know, when they're singing, and it's definitely when you can really hear it, the regional accent when he twangs it in his lyrics. And I try my best to do it, but I ain't nowhere near. I can't do the accent, but I do my best.
We'll bring you over to Skerries if you're ever in Dublin.
Absolutely, I'd love that. I really would.
Rob, look, we wish you the best. I know myself and Keith will be keeping an eye out on your TikTok, your Instagram, and the talks that you've got planned. And we can't wait to meet you in person and go out for a couple of Guinnesses.
Absolutely, I'll give it my best shot with that, because it tastes different over there. It tastes different over the water. I don't know what they do to it, but it's definitely different.
It's liquid gold over here. I don't know what
absolutely.
I don't know what we'd call it over there, but I'll definitely treat you to a couple of them when you come over.
Definitely, I'm more than up for that.
We know all the nice spots.
That's it. Everybody thinks you can go to Temple Bar, but everybody avoids it, don't they? So
no, there's nicer places. Really appreciate having you on, Rob. Thanks a million for that.
Not a problem. Thanks for having us. Again, straight back at you. Really appreciate the support and having us on to have these chats.
No problem. Take it easy. Have a good one. I'm going to play you out now to your song choice.
Amazing. Thank you.
Right, that's just about it for episode 6 of season 2. I just want to say a massive thank you to our guest, Robert Muldoon, for joining us on the show today. And a big thank you to Mighty Facilities Management for allowing us to record out of their wellness room in Dublin, Ireland. Just a quick reminder that the Construction Industry Helpline operates 24/7 and can be accessed by calling 1800 939 122. Come back next time for more overload chat and guest interviews, and head over to wherever you get your podcasts, give us a like and a follow to be notified when the next episode drops. Take it easy, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you in the next one.